So there we have it. Good afternoon to all of you. Welcome, whoever ends up getting here. I may only have three views by the time this is done, but hey, whoever gets a chance to converse and have an actual open discussion about logistics and trucking in general in North America, that's exactly the whole plan of this. I mean, if I end up helping one person, I think I've done a good job. So there you have it with that. So when it comes to this industry, currently the state of trucking is absolutely bizarre in North America. I cannot tell you how many carriers reach out to me and ask me, "What are we first year? Teach me." All right, Christian Roberts. People say things like, every single day, like just moments ago before I even started this live, there was a carrier out of central Canada ask me, what can we do? I mean, I have exhausted my resources as to how to grow this business currently in this type of low volume, high capacity scenario that we are all in. We're all participating in this, including the good brokers and the bad brokers. Of course, the bad brokers will take advantage of this, at will when it comes to carriers and making sure that carriers, get the short end of the stick, to put it in a YouTube friendly manner, respectively. So, with that being said, when we are talking about the bad players in the industry, I do truly believe that their guidelines as to how to train their new staff, particularly the young guns out of college, um, it's here. Let me see what Christian says here. The only question I've heard over and over again is, how are these carriers who bought equipment late, made no long lasting relationships, and still holding on? That is a $7 trillion question right there. How does that happen? Every single time we do our dispatch course, for example, we talk about operational cost calculations. You're telling me you're running a big rig down the road at 70 cents a mile or a buck a mile, and somehow you've survived to this point. I mean, this didn't start yesterday. And Christian is right. This is something that's been going on for several months, since the downturn, right? Since the downturn started. Okay, so how can one uh, drive just one truck and trailer, let alone an entire fleet, down the road, uh, have their trucks that is their own drivers or themselves profitable, plus have the fuel being paid for, plus have the amortization being paid for, plus the truck payments, plus the trailer payments, plus the office types of shenanigans, right? The ELD software, the ELD itself, if you maybe have a monthly fee associated to that. Um, all the administrative expenses in addition to all of that, plus unexpected expenses in this industry, and to still stay afloat beats it beats me. I have tried to understand it, and for the life of me, I don't know. Are they exhausting millions of dollars of funding somehow that we're not aware of, that somehow they're tapping into millions of dollars of cash that they can just burn through month over month over month? I have no clue. And Christian says, my rate before paying me is a buck 60 to buck 70 a mile, fuel cost being the variable shift. 100%. 100%. Even if you're going to pay yourself at the rates at which company drivers, the OTR ones, are being paid, anywhere from 55 to 70 cents a mile, somewhere in there, right? Some super high, some super low, some lower than that. Even if you were to pay yourself as the owner of your company in that range somewhere, okay, before paying yourself, you're still looking at about a buck 60, buck 70 a mile, right? So you take that driver's pay even into mind, and you should be nowhere below 230, 240, 250 a mile plus, of course. And to see loads consistently offered at rates below that is it's scary. This is dangerous for the industry. Yes, I understand. And Christian, this is something I want to just mention to you as well. What we need to see. So So before 2021, before we saw the shift that had occurred where everybody under the sun got into trucking, we saw a shift happen, right, where we had 220,000 carriers to choose from, so four higher carriers in the USA. Okay, and to have that number jump to 475,000 and then see that number now every week decline by about 400 carriers, with the exception of 2 weeks ago where we saw that decline happen, and it was just under 2,100 carriers in 1 week shut their doors. Okay, we need to see consistently about 800 carriers every single week shut their doors in order for us to get back to where we need to be. Okay, it's unfortunate, but this is the consequences of an open market, and this is the consequences of a supply and demand free market capitalism that we all live in. So we do need to see an adjustment in the number of available carriers both in Canada and the USA respectively. This has to happen sooner rather than later. If it does not happen sooner rather than later, what we are going to see is we are going to see a crazy drop in the amount of carriers available overnight, because there's no way the sustenance will happen, that the sustaining of these rates will happen. Okay, the pressures, people are now at the breaking point. Some have broken, but people are at the breaking point when it comes to their trucking operations, right? And also, take into consideration, like, you should not be doing cargo van and sprinter rates for the big rigs, for the dry vans and reefers and step decks and flatbeds. That is not how you make money. And unfortunately, we're going to have to see these ones that are giving a buck a mile rates just to get a load go out of business in order for us to be back where we need to be. Okay. And it needs to be adjusted in that manner. Now, going back to what I said about, just the bad players in the industry, the some bad playing brokers, there's carriers alike. I do truly believe that the carriers that are doing a buck mile are also bad players, but just in a different light, right? So, but the brokers that are bad players, not only is it that they're offering low rates, okay, they're also giving excuses to carriers when it comes to detention, right, and layovers. They're saying, "Oh, sorry, shipper's not paying." BS. Shippers aren't paying. If you as a broker pressure your customers enough to pay you detention, trust me, they will pay detention. Trust me, they will pay detention. Okay. And Christian says, I was glad to see Convoy go, and I hope TQL follows. We need to reset the precedent on gouging. 100%, 7 trillion percent. And I understand where you're coming from, Christian. I truly do get it. Seeing Convoy go was a fresh of breath air, unfortunately, but they were taking advantage of capacity by trying to set themselves as if they were not a broker. And in the end, they ended up just being a digital broker. And now they owe hundreds upon thousands of dollars to different trucking companies, with one trucking company coming have come out and said that they owe them, or that is Convoy had owed to them $600,000, right? And that's just one trucking company. Where are all the other ones that are in the $10,000 range? $10,000 to some people isn't a lot of money, but that's like, in Canada, man, that's 8 fuel tanks full of fuel, right? That can get you quite that could be almost, I'm not saying it is, but almost, for an OTR driver, that's almost 1 month worth of fuel. Okay, just almost, just a couple bucks short of that. Okay, in the US, no difference. Fuel has come up as well in that respect. But yes, Christian, I'm in agreement with you, even for TQL. Okay, um, we know how predatory they are, right? They get the young kids out of college, they put them in the seat, and they say, hey, you want to work yourself up? Let's get on gouging these carriers. And it's not traditional term of gouging. It's more like this. It's more of a suppressing of the rate towards the carrier, and they're maximizing their profits with that, instead of, right, them as a broker going to 5 to 10 carriers in whatever lane and saying, hey guys, what do you need for this? Okay, where do you need to be? Okay, and then the carriers coming back to them and telling them, okay, I need $800, I need 1200, I need 15, whatever the case may be. And then TQL sitting down, the representative sitting down, looking at the numbers and saying, you know what? This guy that's lowballing everybody under the sun, this carrier, screw him. We are not going to use his rate. And this other guy on the other end of the outlier on the other end of the spectrum that's saying, hey, for 100 miles, I need 15 grand. Let's get him out of the equation and look at those 8 carriers that gave fair market value prices, but ones that are sustainable, the ones that they can actually survive and thrive off of as well. And then going to their shipper and saying, hey, you know what, my carriers are 1500 on this, and I'm going to need to be at, whatever the case. Let's say they want to make $200, $400. I don't give a flying F how much money they're going to make. I truly don't care how much the brokers are making in that respect, but I do have a problem with brokers going to shippers saying, hey, your rate's 700, we can get it done at 600. And then going to the load boards and putting loads at $300 on 200 miles or $600 on 500 miles, or just the one today I saw, craziness, $1,200 on 1,000 miles. Okay. That's not sustainable. I am sorry, but that is not the way forward for our industry. And that is something that is hurting our industry left, right, and center. Right? These are not the type of rates that we should be running loads at. $1,200. And so this brings me to my next point, Christian, actually. Okay. It comes to the way that they talk to you guys as carriers. That is when brokers disrespect carriers on a human level. It's some dehumanizing type of language or barriers to conversations type of language, right? And one of those is like this. Okay, today with that guy that was offering $1,200 on 1,000 miles, the carrier came to him and says, "Hey, how close can you get to 2,100? How close can you get to $2,100? Let me know, please." Thank you was in this in the reply in the email. The broker comes back. His reply is this: dumb question, pass. No, thank you. He even erased the thank you from the signature. Are you effing kidding me? Who taught you manners, young man? Did you have somebody to teach you manners when you're speaking to someone? He could have went to this carrier and says, "Hello, Mr. A. Um, I did get your reply. You did say 2,100. The closest we can get to that is 1,800 or 1,600 because they can. Let's be honest with each other. Yes, they can do even closer to 2,100. Let's be quite frank with one another. Okay. If they still wanted to make a pretty bank, they could have at least told the carrier, hey, you know what? We can do 16, we can do 17 or 18 or whatever the case may be. This is where we can be. Can we meet somewhere there in the middle? And this opens up the room for negotiation back and forth to get an actual rate that's fair for all three parties involved, including the broker himself, rather than dumb question, pass. That is not the way forward. I'm sorry, but that type of lingo is not okay with me. TQL representatives do this all the time. This was a representative of a trucking of a brokerage called FLS Transportation Services. That type of talk, they need to train them better. That is a bad look for the industry, but that's also a bad look for FLS. Okay. Christian says, the crazy part is I have relationships with brokers who pay okay, but I know they are paddling the loads by 40, 50%. I talk to their customers. It's pervasive. It is. It's incredibly pervasive. They can look you in the eyes and tell you, yeah, we're only making 6%. We're only making 7%. BS. Okay, and they're paying okay because they can pay okay, and they can pay a lot better than okay. Trust me. Even in 2021, when rates were crazy, I had awesome relationships with my carriers. Bro, I was moving loads and I tell this in even my course, we were moving loads from Ontario, California to El Paso, Texas, about 700-mile runs, 45 grand. I told my customers I have a pit in my stomach with the rate that I'm about to offer to you, but the carriers are at 42,000. The carriers are at 42,000. I am not going to front 42,000 without making my money, But the carriers, that's where they're at. And I'm sorry, but that's where we need to be. If you want us to participate and run your loads, that's where we need to be. Full truckload, sure, great. Team drivers, all that, but those are really good rates, right? But even with the rates, the pressures, the inflationary pressures, and the pressures on volumes and high capacity, and all that being said, we could still find a common ground for all parties involved. So that way we can understand that if I go to Christian and I say, Christian, can you run this load for me and what you would need? And Christian says, I need 2 grand. It's my responsibility to get Christian his 2 grand. Okay. And I have no problem. If I get 2,500, I have no problem going to Christian saying, Christian, I got 2,100 for you, or I got 2,200, whatever the case may be. Butter him up a bit. He's happy. He's going to be willing to do loads for me again. And we move forward and build that relationship. And then when there's some high volume stuff, Christian can do that for me as well. Right. And build those relationships rather than, take a load for 4 grand and throw it out on that DAT load board for, a grand, like some brokers are doing out there, right? And that's not the way forward either. Okay. And another pet peeve of mine that I have, and again, I'm not bashing brokers, it's just realistic things that are happening in the industry. Brokers not paying their bills. Last week alone, there was dozens of posts on LinkedIn, which is another place I am active on, talking about, what are the contact numbers and email addresses and whatever else, when it comes to getting a hold of some brokers that aren't paying their rates. I mean, their bills, their invoices. And it's scary to see a dozen brokers not related to one another not paying their bills. That's way too high, in my opinion. One is too much, let alone 12. Okay. It's, you know what? Let me give you an example. And Christian, I'll get to your statement here in a second. Your reputation in any circle of life, in business, personal, whatever, closed doors, open doors, glass house, I don't care. Your reputation is what matters. Okay. Doing the right thing is what matters. Okay. I have been in situations where I have been a broker agent and my brokerage house not paying a bill. Granted, they paid all their bills, but not to one company that they owed $4,400 to. I paid out of my own personal bank account because I did not want my name tarnished out on the open boards. Because your reputation is what matters above all else. Can you really sit down at the dinner table and talk to your kids and be all nice to them and kind to them and sleep at night knowing you screwed somebody over for 1 grand or 4,000? How you can be of any sound mind doing that and repetition, repeating that over and over again? That is freaking me out that so many people can, and to not care, to not answer your phone calls, text messages, WhatsApp messages, Telegram, Signal, email, carrier pigeon, whatever the case may be. Christian says, I move heaven and earth for my relationships, but this cycle is souring everyone else for me. Moving forward is going to be unprecedented. Okay. And 100%. And that is good to hear, Christian. And I hope that's the same in your personal life as well. And if you're like that in business, there's a good chance you're like that in your person. I'm the same way. You call me a people pleaser, whatever the F you want to call me. It's about having that camaraderie stay past the sale. Okay. So I can call Christian, what's up, bud? How you doing? Just kick the shit. You know what I mean? Like just kind of, what's going on? How are you? Even if we don't run a load together, we can stay in connection that way. And then when I do have a load, I can talk to Christian about loads, right? Or anyone else for that matter. Okay. Another thing, like you guys saw the whole, TQL may have raided, FMCSA may have raided TQL offices. And then they came back and says, no, we did not raid the office and all that kind of talk back and forth. Whatever happened behind closed doors, I hope that there's progress though. The FMCSA is known to kind of just make sure that their pockets are well endowed and that they have the money and the funding from the government and, of course, funding through revenue collection through fines and penalties that they put on carriers for the most foolish things. But at the end of the day, I hope there is some progress forward for carriers. Okay. Everything I needed to know about a certain group of carriers, I saw by their statements, or sorry, brokers, where I won't mention them, but they're a three-letter organization specifically for brokers that talk about trying to evoke changes in the FMCSA guidelines as to bookkeeping for brokers. And the fact that they came out and tried to change those laws in favor of brokers is disgusting to me. Okay. I have no problem sharing the books with the carriers that run the loads. You ask me, well, okay, let's talk about it, and here it is. You can take a look and let me know how you feel. But at the same time, that doesn't change anything, okay? Unless the laws change to help the carriers out in that manner as well. Okay, so the broker transparency stuff is a real thing. And that's going to have to improve as well. And I mentioned earlier that we're seeing like 400 ish carriers go out of business and roughly 30, 40 brokers a week going out of business. We're going to need to see those numbers elevated in order to see the light at the end of the tunnel that we're currently in when it comes to freight and the volumes associated to that as well. Okay, now there are some geopolitical things that are going on, and even last couple of days with the container ships having to go now potentially around southern tips of Africa, around South Africa, and up towards Europe and the Americas, respectively, because of the Suez Canal problem currently and all that kind of stuff. I guess we'll see where that goes, where that Suez Canal blockage goes in terms of the geopolitical aspect of it. Will it be unclogged, or will we continuously just see now diversions happen from the major shipping lines? This will put inflationary pressures on the rates of those container shipments. And if it continues, it'll go from where the rates are currently to about 3, 4, 5x X, so 5 times, 4 times, 3 times the current rates at which those lanes are moving at right now, because of the 2-3 week journey around the southern Africa, up towards Europe and respectively Americas as well. Okay, so we'll see where that goes. I'm not sure what happened, but these are the type of curveballs that are being thrown, and the disruptions may increase may increase the speed at which we officially see the light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, I don't know exactly when that will be. If you were to ask me a number, I'm gonna say if there are no further disruptions, geopolitical types of disruptions or things that affect supply chains, I'm going to say it's probably looking about 40 weeks from now still. So 40 weeks from now will put us where rates will kind of start to slowly creep back up where they need to be. Um, if you ask me. Now, I don't know if you guys have your own opinions, but let me know in the comments what you guys think in terms of in terms of that. But in essence, I do truly think that this will be um, the kind of speed at which we get out of this tunnel that we're in when it comes to rates. Okay. The whole, and also the detention and layover stuff with the new potential guidelines and FMCSA regulations. You know, brokers and shippers have been stealing from carriers since this earth seems to have been created. Okay. And certain things have been put in place to try to limit the amount of money these companies pay. But man, driver's time is not free. Okay. Whoever created that first 2 hours are free. Okay. First 2 hours are free and all this kind of stuff. Whoever created that, man, um, I wish I knew that person before they created that, because I don't think that's fair at all. I do truly think that realistically we should be giving about 30 minutes to shippers to load and offload, and to have 2 hours, 5 hours. Some GM locations too, General Motors locations, like 4 or 5 hours free of waiting time. So free waiting time, and then you can charge below minimum wage when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's tough. um, and uh, Kaj or Cage or Kai, K. I'm sorry. How do you say your name? They say first 2 hours are free. That concept is so that the warehouses can milk the system, of course, and take their sweet ass time, of course, to load the trucks that are priority to them first. 100%, 160%. That's true. But we need to do a better job of potentially regulating that, because that should help the truckers, and the truckers should see that percentage. So you shouldn't just go to the trucking company, it should go to the actual driver waiting. I just cannot for the life of me understand why drivers times just don't matter to these people. Drivers have three clocks that they're looking at. They have their driving time, they have their cycle duty cycle, and then they have their actual cycle clock for the type of cycle they're on, for driving, right? And K or Kai or Cage Kaj G says, can't tell you how many times my drivers get loaded at 2.5 hours just so we don't get paid the $25. It's scary. It's scary when you put things that way, and I've been in that situation with my own trucks. Um, it's so Kaj Dodge, but with a K. That's a see. That is see. You understand. This is logic. This is a definition of logic, right? Explaining something a little bit complex, with something like this, like Dodge, but with a K. So Kaj, Dodge, and Kaj. See, it's easy, right? It's so my name is Nerf, and I tell people Nerf like the Nerf gun, so they can they can have a little bit easier time of trying to say that, right? Christian says the fact brokers get a percentage of the detention is insanity. So that's another thing, by the way, Christian. You're right, right? TQL practices this, a bunch of other ones. We can name an entire list here on this show right now. Show, my goodness. This nice little small business get together live show, a live YouTube show. I've seen brokers. So what they do is they'll go to the shipper. Let's say there's 4 hours of payable detention, right? They'll go and they'll say, okay, we need $200. Okay, they'll get their $200 and they'll go to the carrier, say, sorry, I tried to get detention, but the shipper won't budge, man. I'll get you on the next one. They say, I'll get you on the next one. Guess what happens on the next one? Nothing, man. Same as old. Same as always. Right. And that's hopefully these new regulations, at least in the US. Canada is a free for all, actually. In Canada, there's like no rules and regulations associated to any stuff when it comes to this. We don't have an FMCSA. We have the government in our pockets from that perspective, from the revenue perspective, and also from the penalties associated to safety and the safety fitness for carriers with the different weight scales and things of that nature. But when it comes to regulations for brokers, there's none. There's literally zero. You can become a broker overnight in Canada. We don't even have a surety bond requirement in Canada. Actually, the only province in Canada that has any sort of rules, laws, and regulations is Quebec, and that's that you have to register with the CTQ as an intermediary or as a broker, and it's like $149 a year, which is preposterous to me. But hey, that's what the type of business that we participate in that manner as well. But yeah, and I've also seen, you're right, also Christian, when it comes to the percentages. So sometimes what they'll do on the layover, they'll get 250, for example, right? Standard terms, layover, whatever. I think that's super cheap, and I think the layover is also another way to mitigate the amount of money they'd have to give. Um, it should be $50 an hour all the way until it gets loaded. I don't care if it's 15 hours from now or 20 hours from now. You owe me $50 an hour. Truly, I do truly think that that's where it needs to be. And they can all afford it. Trust me, they can all afford it. It's just the fact that the 250 standard charge is a way for them to mitigate losses, right? Or in other words, not to pay you, right? So what brokers will do is they'll go to a shipper, they'll get the 250 and they'll say, hey, I got you that layover. I'm going to send over a revised rate confirmation. And they send you a revised rate confirmation and you look at that rate confirmation, it's an added $150, right? So the broker still makes their $100 off of that. And it's not about brokers being the bad guy. It's about the bad players influencing brokers to make these types of decisions for their offices. And then it becomes industry standard, right? All industry standard, do fucking, 2 hours free or whatever the case may be. Like that's where that whole thing kind of comes from, is kind of like, one guy starts it, and then next thing you know, 5,000 brokerages around North America, or 10,000 brokerages, are all doing the same thing. As long as it's money in their pocket and not money out of their pocket, respectively. I guess the main problem for me is the fact that I've run my own trucks, so like, looking at the tire bill, and it's like $7,600 for new tires, for eight tires or nine tires, whatever the case may be. And you're looking and you're like, what the heck, man? Like, I kind of I kind of have liability when it comes to insurance. Primarily, it's my concern, right? Commercial, general, auto liability, cargo coverage. It's kind of like we're looked through a very, like, under the microscope for everything, and we have most of the liability in any case, right? I mean, we heard about the story of that lady that crossed the median down in Texas, and she went under a truck. The truck was not at fault, but due to certain liabilities and certain what's it called, certain regulations, carrier and driver was seen as being at fault, even though they were going in opposite directions, and even though driver had nothing to do with that lady. Driver didn't make any actual physical mechanical maneuvers or mistakes with his vehicle to cause the accident. Lady fell asleep behind the wheel, and unfortunately, it wasn't a good ending. I'm just putting it lightly. And it wasn't a good one financially for the carrier. But this is what I mean, right? The financial implications for carriers is huge for any maneuver they make and any decision they make. And even from the operational cost side of the equation as well, that also is wild as well. So there you have it, guys. I just wanted to do a little bit rant. I do really think it'll be 40 weeks before we see any regular rates back. You know, Shippers are loving this right now. Brokers are loving this. The ones that are the mega brokers of the industries, and the mega carriers are loving it because amount of drivers available for hiring has never been higher for them, because the small mom and pop shop companies that came into the business are now getting forced out, because hey, mega carriers, mega brokers kind of rule the roost, right? That's kind of how it all always has been, and for now, that's kind of how it is, right? So anyways, thank you so much for listening. Subscribe to the channel, like, comment, let me know what's up, and looking forward to chatting with you guys again in the near future. So respect and world peace. Bye. And thank you, Christian, and Kaj as well, for letting me know what's up as well. So world peace to both of you. Respect. Bye bye. And good luck, of course, for the next remaining days of 2023. World peace. Bye.